There is a place that does not respond to pressure. Not because pressure is weak, but because it cannot enter. A place that does not react, does not defend itself, and does not prepare for what might come next. Most people never arrive here because they are taught to stay alert, to watch carefully, to protect themselves. But Psalm 91 does not describe protection as effort. It reveals protection as location. This is not about becoming stronger, it is about arriving somewhere unseen. There are moments in life when anxiety fades, not because circumstances change, but because something inside you shifts position. You are no longer where the pressure can reach. The weight does not follow. The noise does not cross the boundary. This is the space Psalm 91 describes, not a feeling, not an emotion, a dwelling. As you listen, nothing is required of you. You do not need to focus intensely. You do not need to stay aware. This is not a moment for vigilance. This is a moment for habitation. When you dwell, what once followed you loses access. Fear does not disappear by force. It disappears when it no longer knows where you are. This psalm does not invite you to fight. It invites you to remain. And as you remain, something important happens quietly. What once moved toward you stops mid-path. Not because it was confronted, but because it cannot enter where you are now. This is the beginning of refuge. There are environments where pressure survives only because you remain within its reach. It is not sustained by strength, but by proximity. Psalm 91 reveals something most people never consider. Protection is not something you activate, it is something you enter. This is why so many efforts to feel safe fail. They are attempts to defend a position instead of leaving it. When you dwell, you're no longer managing danger. You are no longer tracking threats. You are no longer negotiating with fear. You have relocated. Relocation is silent. It does not announce itself. It does not feel dramatic. You may not notice the exact moment when the shift happens, but you notice its effect. The weight does not follow you inside. Thoughts slow without effort. The body releases tension without instruction. The constant sense of needing to be alert dissolves naturally. This is not relief. Relief suggests something ended. This is absence of access. Psalm 91 speaks of a place where harm cannot organize itself, not because it is resisted, but because it does not belong there. The danger is not confronted, it is excluded by location. Most people are taught to survive by anticipation, by staying one step ahead of what might come next. But anticipation is exhausting because it assumes exposure. Psalm 91 removes exposure entirely. When you dwell, you are no longer available to what once followed you. As this understanding settles, notice how there is no instruction to act, no requirement to prepare, no call to vigilance. The psalm does not ask you to do anything with the information it reveals. It simply describes where you already are. This is important because effort would imply instability. Instability would imply that something could still reach you. But Psalm 91 does not describe fragile safety, it describes sealed habitation. A dwelling is not temporary shelter, it is not a momentary escape. It is a place where you remain. And when you remain, what once tracked you loses its reference point. Fear cannot locate you. Anxiety cannot follow you. Pressure loses orientation. Orientation was its strength. Without orientation, movement fails. Without movement, pursuit ends. This is why nothing needs to be forced, nothing needs to be declared, nothing needs to be broken. What cannot reach you does not need to be defeated. As the words continue, allow the concept of effort to dissolve. You are not arriving somewhere new, you are recognizing where you already are. Recognition does not change the place, it changes your relationship to it. And within this relationship, the body begins to respond correctly. Breathing becomes slower without instruction. Muscles release without command. Thoughts no longer rush to explain what is happening. Explanation is unnecessary here. Psalm 91 is not a strategy, it is a location where nothing hostile can remain organized long enough to matter. As you stay within this understanding, there is no signal that something must happen next. There is no countdown, no escalation, no preparation for what follows. The dwelling does not lead somewhere else. It is the end of pursuit. There is a difference between hiding and dwelling, and most people confuse the two. Hiding is reactive. It is a response to threat. Dwelling is positional. It exists before threat ever appears. Psalm 91 does not describe escape. It describes residence. When you hide, you are still oriented toward what you are avoiding. When you dwell, orientation changes completely. The environment itself becomes incompatible with intrusion. Nothing hostile adapts to it. Nothing harmful learns its patterns. This is why the refuge described here does not weaken you. It does not isolate you. It does not remove you from life. It places you in a position where life no longer needs to be defended. Defense belongs to exposed spaces. Dwelling belongs to sealed ones. As this distinction becomes clearer, you may notice how much energy was once spent simply staying alert. Alertness becomes unnecessary when there is no access. The body recognizes this faster than the mind. It stops scanning, it stops bracing, it stops anticipating. This is not because danger vanished, it is because you are no longer where danger can operate. Psalm 91 reveals that safety is not something added on top of life. It is something that surrounds life completely. A covering does not need to be activated. It is already present once you are inside it. Inside, nothing pressures your awareness. Thoughts no longer feel like warnings. Sensations no longer feel like signals. Everything softens without losing clarity. Clarity here does not come from focus, it comes from stillness. Stillness is often misunderstood as inactivity, but this stillness is active in a way that does not feel demanding. It maintains boundaries without effort. It holds space without tension. This is why the psalm never urges haste. There is nowhere else to go. When you dwell, time changes its role. It no longer pushes you forward. It no longer pulls you backward. It simply passes without organizing your internal state. This is why rest becomes possible even while awake. Rest is not collapse. It is alignment. Aligned with a place where fear has no reference, anxiety has no pathway, and pressure has no leverage. What once felt overwhelming loses significance because it can no longer approach closely enough to matter. As this understanding settles, you may notice that your sense of identity shifts slightly, not dramatically, quietly. You are no longer someone managing threats. You are someone inhabiting protection. Inhabiting changes everything. You do not ask whether you are safe. You do not check whether protection is active. You do not monitor the environment. Monitoring belongs to exposed positions. Here, nothing needs to be monitored. Psalm 91 does not describe a momentary miracle. It describes a condition that holds regardless of circumstances. Conditions do not fluctuate with emotion. They remain constant beneath it. This is why peace here is not emotional. It is structural. And as this structure holds, the nervous system settles into a rhythm that feels natural, not controlled, not forced, simply correct. Nothing presses inward, nothing organizes itself against you, nothing waits for a moment of weakness. Weakness assumes access. Access does not exist here. This is the dwelling, and the more you remain without effort, the clearer it becomes that nothing is required to keep it intact. The place holds itself. What makes this place different from every other sense of safety you may have known is that it does not end when attention moves elsewhere. It does not rely on focus, intention, or awareness. It does not weaken when you stop listening. This refuge exists independently of sound. Psalm 91 does not describe a moment created by words. It describes a condition that words only reveal. Once revealed, it does not retreat when the words fade. It remains active beneath daily movement, beneath silence, beneath sleep. This is why the psalm speaks of night without fear. Night represents the moment when vigilance usually relaxes, when the mind loosens control, when awareness drifts. Most forms of safety fail here because they depend on consciousness. This one does not. When you dwell, protection does not follow you into rest. It is already there before rest begins. It surrounds you without instruction. It does not wait for permission to remain active. As this understanding deepens, the idea of holding on dissolves. There is nothing to hold, There is no position to maintain. The dwelling does not collapse when you forget about it. Forgetting does not weaken it. Awareness does not strengthen it. This is why the body begins to trust it naturally. Trust here is not belief. It is the absence of readiness. Muscles soften, breathing deepens. The subtle tension of expectation fades. Expectation belonged to a time when something might reach you. That time is no longer active here. As moments pass, the inner world no longer reacts to uncertainty. Uncertainty loses its organizing power because it no longer implies exposure. Questions may arise, but they do not disturb the space. They pass through without creating movement. Movement requires pressure. Pressure cannot enter. This is the environment Psalm 91 establishes. Not a shield you carry, but a place you inhabit. And habitation does not end when circumstances change. It remains present when life resumes its pace. You do not need to return here consciously. You are already here. The sound you are hearing does not bring you in. It simply reminds you where you are. When the reminder ends, the place remains. This is why nothing dramatic occurs as the words continue. No surge, no release, no climax. Climax would suggest a peak followed by descent. This place does not descend. It holds the same quiet authority whether the world feels calm or chaotic. Authority here is not force, it is incompatibility. What does not belong cannot remain. As this block continues, the sense of refuge becomes less noticeable, not because it is fading, but because it is no longer contrasted by threat. When nothing presses against you, protection feels natural. Natural things do not announce themselves. You may notice that even the idea of being followed loses meaning. Follow implies shared space. There is no shared space here. Paths that once converged no longer meet. This is why pursuit ends without confrontation. Nothing is blocked, nothing is chased away, nothing is resisted. It simply cannot cross into where you are. And as this understanding settles further, the mind stops asking when it will end. There is no ending scheduled. There is no condition attached. The dwelling is not temporary. It is the place you return to without effort, again and again, because you never actually left it. Authority in this place does not announce itself. It does not raise its voice. It does not assert dominance. It simply exists as a condition that cannot be challenged. Psalm 91 does not describe authority as something you project outward. It reveals authority as something that surrounds you so completely that nothing needs to be confronted. What cannot enter does not need to be opposed. This is why the protection here feels quiet rather than forceful. Force implies resistance. Resistance implies proximity. In this dwelling, proximity does not exist. Authority here is spatial. It is the authority of a place where fear has no jurisdiction, where anxiety has no access point, where unseen pressure cannot establish presence long enough to influence anything. This authority does not fluctuate with confidence. It does not rise or fall with emotion. It does not depend on awareness. It holds whether you feel strong or tired, focused or distracted, alert or resting. This is what makes it reliable. As this understanding settles, the idea of needing to stand your ground begins to lose relevance. Standing your ground assumes something is advancing toward you. In this place, nothing advances. There is no line to defend. Defense is unnecessary when boundaries are absolute. You may notice that the sense of being watched, followed, or influenced quietly dissolves. Not because something was chased away, but because nothing remains close enough to observe you. Observation requires access. Access has been removed. As minutes pass, this authority expresses itself as calm presence. Not passivity, not withdrawal, simply an unmovable stability that does not need to prove itself. The body recognizes this stability instinctively. There is no subtle readiness beneath the surface, no waiting for a signal, no background alertness scanning for threat. Scanning belongs to exposed environments. Here, nothing scans you. This is why Psalm 91 speaks of safety, not as a momentary intervention, but as a dwelling. A dwelling does not shift with circumstances. It remains constant regardless of what happens outside its walls. Inside, nothing escalates, nothing organizes itself, nothing tests boundaries. Boundaries are not enforced, they are inherent. As the words continue, there is no push toward action. Authority here does not demand response. It does not recruit effort. It does not require participation. Participation would imply vulnerability. Instead, this authority simply holds the space where you remain, quiet, settled, and unreachable by what once pressed against you. This is the kind of authority that does not feel heavy. It does not weigh on you. It does not restrict movement. It creates freedom by removing the need to defend. Freedom here is not the absence of challenge, it is the absence of access. And as this block unfolds, the idea of regaining control becomes unnecessary. Control was once a response to exposure. Exposure no longer exists. What remains is quiet confidence without assertion, presence without tension, stability without effort. This is the authority of Psalm 91, not spoken, not displayed, but continuously active. And the more you remain without effort, the clearer it becomes that nothing is required to keep it intact. The place itself holds everything in position. Night has a way of revealing what daytime conceals. When activity slows and distractions fall away, the mind often becomes louder. Thoughts surface without invitation. Old patterns try to reorganize themselves. This is where most people feel most exposed. Psalm 91 speaks directly into this space, not by offering reassurance, but by revealing that exposure does not exist where you are dwelling. Night does not weaken this refuge, it confirms it. When awareness softens and control loosens, protection here does not fade. It does not wait for consciousness to remain sharp. It does not require attention to stay active. It surrounds you before sleep begins and remains long after thought dissolves. This is why the psalm speaks of rest without fear. Fear depends on uncertainty. Uncertainty depends on access. Access is absent here. As the night deepens, the body enters states where it is no longer directing itself. Breathing slows, muscles release, the mind drifts between presence and absence. In many forms of safety, this is where vulnerability appears. In this dwelling, nothing changes. Protection does not thin when awareness fades. It does not loosen when attention moves away. It does not require you to stay with it. The place holds itself regardless of your state. This is not protection layered on top of sleep. It is protection that remains while sleep happens. As this understanding settles, the body no longer treats rest as risk. There is no subtle resistance to letting go, no hidden vigilance waiting beneath relaxation. The system allows itself to release fully because nothing needs to be monitored. Monitoring belongs to environments where threat could enter. Here, nothing enters. As hours pass, even the memory of pressure loses its grip, not because it is suppressed, but because it no longer fits the environment you are in. Memories that once carried weight feel distant, not emotionally charged, not demanding resolution. They have no leverage here. This is why waking from rest within this refuge feels different. There is no sharp return to alertness, no immediate scanning, no sense of re-entry into exposure. The state remains continuous. Continuity is the key. Psalm 91 does not describe protection that turns on and off. It reveals a condition that remains active through every transition, waking, resting, sleeping, and returning to awareness. This continuity changes how the nervous system relates to time. There is no longer a sense of preparing for what might come next. Preparation implies threat. Threat does not organize itself here. The absence of preparation allows presence to feel light, not distracted, not guarded, simply open without vulnerability. As this block unfolds, the idea of needing to feel safe dissolves. Feeling safe is a response to danger. Here, danger has no position from which to operate. You do not feel protected, you are protected. And because this is structural, not emotional, it does not fluctuate. It remains the same whether the night is quiet or restless, whether the mind is clear or drifting. Nothing presses inward, nothing follows, nothing waits for you to weaken. What once relied on proximity can no longer approach. This is the depth of the dwelling Psalm 91 reveals, a place where even the unconscious remains outside the reach of interference, where rest is uninterrupted not by effort, but by location. You are not guarded here. You are unreachable. And as this understanding settles deeper, there is no sense of needing to hold on to it. Holding would imply loss is possible. Loss is not part of this environment. The place remains, through silence, through rest, through the night. When this dwelling becomes familiar, something subtle but important changes in how time is experienced. Days no longer feel like something to endure. Moments no longer feel like obstacles to get through. Life continues, but it no longer presses inward. This does not mean that challenges disappear. It means they no longer organize your inner posture. Psalm 91 does not promise a life without movement. It reveals a place where movement cannot invade, where events occur without penetration, where circumstances exist without authority. Authority belongs to location. As this understanding settles, the need to mentally prepare for the future begins to dissolve. Preparation once served as protection. Here, preparation is unnecessary. The dwelling remains regardless of what unfolds. This changes how anticipation works. Anticipation no longer tightens the body. It no longer accelerates thought. It no longer demands readiness. The future does not feel like something approaching you. It feels like something you will meet from a stable position. Meeting from stability is different than bracing from exposure. In this place, responses arise without urgency. Decisions feel quieter. Movements feel slower without becoming passive. Life resumes its rhythm, but the rhythm no longer dictates your internal state. This is not withdrawal from life, it is relocation within it. You remain present, engaged, and aware, but not exposed. What once attempted to follow you into every moment can no longer keep pace. It falls behind, not because it is chased away, but because it cannot enter the space where you now stand. Standing here does not require effort. As time passes, even the habit of returning to fear-based thinking weakens. Habits depend on repetition. Repetition requires reinforcement. Reinforcement no longer occurs here. Thoughts that once felt automatic now feel optional. They appear without force. They pass without attachment. They do not organize behavior. This is not suppression, it is displacement. Displacement happens when something no longer belongs in the environment it once occupied. As this continues, you may notice that moments of quiet confidence appear without explanation, not pride, not certainty, simply a sense that nothing is pressing you from behind or ahead. Pressure has no direction here. This is why Psalm 91 does not urge repetition to remain effective. It does not need to be invoked constantly. It does not weaken when attention shifts elsewhere. Once the dwelling is recognized, it remains active beneath everything else. Recognition changes orientation. Orientation determines access. Access is closed. As the hours of the day move forward, the refuge does not fade into the background. It becomes the background. Everything else happens within it, not against it. This is why even unexpected moments do not disrupt the inner state. Surprise loses its power when there is no vulnerability to exploit. Nothing catches you off guard because nothing approaches closely enough to startle. The system no longer flinches. Flinching was a response to exposure. Exposure is absent here. As this block unfolds, the sense of being carried replaces the sense of carrying everything yourself, not emotionally, but structurally. You are no longer responsible for maintaining safety. Responsibility implies fragility. Fragility does not exist here. The dwelling holds you without asking for awareness, effort, or belief. It holds whether you think about it or not, whether you remember it or forget it. This is what makes it permanent. And as this permanence settles deeper, there is no feeling of reaching an end point. There is no signal that something needs to be concluded. The experience does not aim toward resolution. It simply continues as the new normal, a place where nothing follows you, a place where nothing overtakes you, a place where nothing reorganizes itself against you. And within this place, life continues, quietly, steadily, and without pressure. As this place becomes the background of your experience, something subtle shifts in how effort is perceived. Effort no longer feels like protection. It feels unnecessary, not because nothing ever happens, but because nothing reaches deeply enough to require defense. Psalm 91 does not remove you from responsibility. It removes responsibility from maintaining safety. There is a difference. You remain present in life, but life no longer presses into your core. This changes how energy moves. Energy is no longer spent bracing. It is no longer consumed by anticipation. It is no longer drained by vigilance. It becomes available for presence, for clarity, for simple awareness without urgency. This availability does not feel exciting. It feels steady. Steadiness is often overlooked because it does not announce itself. But steadiness is what allows endurance without exhaustion. It is what allows continuity without strain. As this steadiness holds, even moments that once triggered internal tightening now pass without escalation. They appear, register briefly, and dissolve without creating movement. They no longer hook attention. Attention is no longer recruited by pressure. This is how patterns lose power, not through confrontation, but through lack of engagement. Patterns require reaction to repeat. Reaction no longer occurs. As hours move forward, the absence of reaction becomes natural. There is no effort involved in not reacting. The system simply does not recognize a need to respond. Need belonged to exposure. Exposure is not present here. Psalm 91 reveals that when you dwell, you are not managing safety moment by moment. Safety is not something you check in with. It is not something you verify repeatedly. It is a condition that remains constant, regardless of attention. This constancy allows the mind to rest without drifting into uncertainty. Thoughts may still arise, but they do not carry urgency. They do not pull the system forward or backward. They float. Floating does not imply detachment. It implies freedom from pressure. As this continues, you may notice that even language begins to soften internally. The mind no longer frames experience in terms of threat or defense. Words like protect, guard, or watch out lose relevance. Relevance required vulnerability. Vulnerability is absent here. This is why Psalm 91 speaks of refuge as dwelling, not as response. A response implies something happened first. Dwelling exists before anything happens, and because it exists before, it remains after. As this block unfolds, there is no sense of building towards something greater. There is no crescendo, no anticipation of climax. What is present now is the same state that will be present later. Consistency replaces intensity. Consistency is what carries through long stretches of time without fatigue. It allows hours to pass without strain. It allows listening to continue without effort. This is why this space supports long presence. It does not demand attention. It does not ask to be held. It simply remains. As the sound continues or fades slightly or blends into silence, nothing essential shifts. The dwelling does not thin, it does not loosen, it does not depend on the next word. It exists beneath the words. And as this existence continues, there is nothing to prepare for, no need to watch for signs, no need to remain alert. What once followed you has no path here, the place holds. Even as the world continues to move around you, this dwelling does not recede, activity does not weaken it, noise does not disturb it, complexity does not penetrate it. Everything continues, but nothing crosses inward. This is where Psalm 91 becomes practical rather than poetic. You are not removed from life, you are removed from exposure. Exposure is what once made every situation feel heavier than it needed to be. It was not the event itself that carried weight, but the way it pressed into you. Here, that pressure cannot pass the boundary. Boundaries here are not enforced, they are inherent. As days unfold, you may notice that situations no longer define your internal state. Outcomes no longer set your posture. Interactions no longer linger after they end. The moment completes itself and does not follow you forward. Following requires attachment. Attachment no longer forms. This does not mean detachment from life. It means life no longer attaches itself to you in ways that drain, distort, or demand defense. You remain present, but not entangled. Entanglement was the source of exhaustion. As this continues, even unexpected moments lose their ability to destabilize. Surprise may occur, but it does not shock the system. There is no internal jolt, no rush to reorient. Orientation is already settled. Psalm 91 reveals that when you dwell, orientation no longer shifts in response to circumstances. It remains anchored in a place that does not move when the environment does. Movement outside does not require movement inside. This allows a different kind of engagement with life. Actions become simpler, responses become quieter, decisions arise without urgency. There is no sense of racing against something unseen. Racing belonged to pursuit. Pursuit has ended. As time passes, you may notice a growing sense of spaciousness, not emptiness, but room. Room to breathe without monitoring, room to think without scanning, room to be present without guarding. This room is not created by effort. It appears when pressure leaves. Pressure can only leave when access is removed. As this block holds, the nervous system continues to operate from a place of safety rather than defense. Safety here is not felt as comfort. It is felt as absence of threat. Absence does not announce itself. It simply allows everything else to soften. The psalm continues beneath awareness, not demanding attention, not guiding effort, but holding the environment steady while life unfolds within it. This steadiness does not fluctuate with mood. It does not thin when tiredness appears. It does not tighten when responsibility returns. It remains. And as it remains, the idea of needing to return to this place loses meaning. Return implies departure. You have not departed. You have been here all along. The words you hear are not creating the refuge. They are simply aligning you with what already exists. When alignment occurs, nothing else is required. Alignment does not need maintenance. It maintains itself. As this understanding deepens, the sense of being carried replaces the sense of carrying everything alone, not emotionally but structurally. You are no longer the point of contact. Contact has been removed. And as this block continues, there is no signal that something must change, no suggestion that a next phase is approaching. The experience does not push forward. It remains exactly where it is, steady, quiet, and unreachable by what once followed you. There is a moment when the idea of returning to the way things were no longer makes sense, not because something dramatic happened, but because the internal reference point has shifted permanently. Psalm 91 does not offer temporary shelter. It does not describe a cycle of entering and leaving. It reveals a dwelling that, once recognized, becomes the new orientation. You do not step out of it to face life. Life meets you from within it. This is why fear does not come back in the same way. It may attempt to appear, but it does not land. It does not take shape. It does not organize itself around you. There is no familiar ground for it to stand on. Familiarity was its advantage. That familiarity no longer exists. As this realization settles, the body stops preparing for relapse. There is no sense of holding on to the state in case it slips away. Slipping away assumes instability. Instability is not present here. The refuge does not fluctuate. It does not weaken. It does not expire. It remains the same whether days feel calm or demanding, whether the mind is quiet or active, whether attention is inward or outward. This constancy is what makes it irreversible. Irreversibility here does not mean rigidity. It means the old pattern no longer fits. You are not resisting it. It simply cannot reattach to where you are now. Attachment requires compatibility. Compatibility has ended. As hours turn into days, you may notice that situations that once triggered immediate internal response now pass without reaction. Not because you suppress response, but because the signal does not arrive strongly enough to register. This is how deep protection works. It does not block at the surface. It prevents approach altogether. Psalm 91 reveals that when you dwell, the system no longer learns fear. Learning requires repetition. Repetition requires exposure. Exposure no longer occurs. What is not learned cannot be reinforced. As this continues, the mind becomes less interested in scanning for meaning in discomfort. Discomfort loses its narrative power. It no longer demands interpretation or resolution. emotion. Interpretation was a survival behavior. Survival mode is inactive here. This is why peace here does not feel emotional, it feels structural. It does not rise and fall. It does not depend on reassurance. It does not require reinforcement. It simply remains as the default environment. As this block unfolds, the idea of needing proof dissolves. Proof implies doubt. Doubt implies vulnerability. Vulnerability has no access point here. You do not need to check whether the refuge is still present. Checking belongs to temporary safety. This dwelling is not temporary. The words continue only to accompany you. They do not maintain the space. They do not strengthen it. They simply exist alongside it. When they fade, nothing essential changes. And as this realization deepens, the sense of being unreachable becomes quiet certainty. Not something you think about, something you live from. Nothing follows you here. Nothing overtakes you. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The pursuit has ended not because something was stopped, but because the path no longer exists. And within this place, life continues. Not under watch, not under pressure, but from a position that cannot be accessed by what once followed you. As this dwelling becomes fully integrated, something important changes in how responsibility is experienced. Responsibility no longer feels like weight. It no longer presses inward or demands constant internal readiness. It exists, but it does not invade. Psalm 91 does not remove responsibility from life. It removes responsibility from guarding your inner space. There is a difference. You act, decide, move, and respond, but none of it penetrates the place where stability resides. This is why even moments that require attention do not disturb the core. Focus may increase, action may be required, but the inner posture remains unchanged. There is no tightening beneath the surface, no urgency pulling you forward. Urgency required exposure. Exposure is absent here. As this continues, decisions arise with less friction. Not because choices are easier, but because fear no longer crowds them. Fear once competed for attention. It no longer has access to the decision-making space. This clarity does not feel sharp, it feels calm. Calm allows movement without force. It allows response without reaction. It allows presence without pressure. This is the kind of clarity that sustains long stretches of life without exhaustion. Psalm 91 reveals that when you dwell, you are no longer positioned where consequences overwhelm you. Consequences may exist, but they do not collapse inward. They remain outside the boundary of your core. This boundary is not something you manage, it manages itself. As time passes, even moments of uncertainty lose their ability to destabilize. Uncertainty no longer implies danger. It becomes simply part of movement, something to navigate, not something to fear. Fear required access. Access does not exist here. As this understanding settles, the mind stops rehearsing outcomes. Rehearsal belonged to preparation for threat. Preparation is no longer needed. You meet moments as they come from a position that does not shift. This is not passivity, it is grounded presence. Grounded presence allows strength without strain. It allows endurance without tension. It allows engagement without vulnerability. As this block unfolds, you may notice that your internal dialogue softens. Thoughts become fewer, not because they are controlled, but because they are no longer recruited by pressure. Silence feels natural, not empty. Silence here is full. It is full of stability, full of continuity, full of the quiet assurance that nothing is approaching you from behind or ahead. Nothing is tracking your movement. Nothing is waiting for a lapse. Waiting requires proximity. Proximity has been removed. Psalm 91 establishes a place where even effort loses its urgency. Effort may still appear, but it no longer feels like survival. It feels like participation in life from a secure position. Participation without exposure changes everything. As this continues, the sense of time being something you must outrun dissolves. You are no longer ahead or behind. You are simply present, moving through moments that do not demand defense. This presence does not fluctuate with success or difficulty. It remains steady regardless of outcome. Outcomes no longer define posture. Posture is already set, and as this block holds, the idea of needing reassurance fades completely. Reassurance was a response to instability. Instability is no longer present. You are not being protected moment by moment. You are dwelling in protection continuously. Nothing follows you into this place. Nothing overtakes you within it. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The dwelling remains through action, through stillness, through responsibility, and through rest. There is a point where protection no longer feels like something happening around you. It feels like something that has already been decided, not decided by effort, not by vigilance, but by position. Psalm 91 reveals this kind of certainty. Certainty here is not confidence, it is finality. What has been sealed does not renegotiate its boundaries. It does not reassess risk. It does not respond to pressure by tightening. It remains exactly as it is, unaffected by what passes nearby. This is why the refuge described here does not fluctuate. It does not respond differently on difficult days. It does not thin when tiredness appears. It does not weaken when attention drifts elsewhere. It remains because it is not reactive. Reactivity belonged to exposure. Exposure has ended. As this understanding settles, the sense of being under threat loses meaning entirely. Threat assumes the possibility of reach. Reach no longer exists here. Nothing approaches closely enough to be considered dangerous. Distance is not measured. It is absolute. Psalm 91 does not say that harm is resisted. It says it does not come near. Nearness is the key. What cannot come near, cannot influence, cannot persuade, cannot reorganize. This is why even subtle internal disturbances lose their power. They may arise briefly, but they do not feel personal. They do not feel directed. They lack the intimacy required to disturb stability. Intimacy was their entry point. That entry point is closed. As this block unfolds, the idea of needing to stay spiritually alert dissolves. Alertness implies risk. Risk is no longer active. The system no longer prepares for intrusion. Preparation has ended. This allows a deeper form of rest, not the rest of collapse, but the rest of certainty. Certainty that nothing is approaching. Certainty that nothing is waiting for a moment of weakness. Certainty that nothing is tracking your presence. Tracking requires signal. Signal has been removed. As minutes pass, even the concept of safety becomes less relevant. Safety implies something could be unsafe. Here, unsafety has no context. The environment itself is incompatible with intrusion. Compatibility is gone. This is why Psalm 91 speaks of dwelling rather than guarding. Guarding would imply that something might cross the threshold. Dwelling assumes the threshold cannot be crossed. As this understanding deepens, the mind releases its last habits of scanning. It no longer checks the edges. It no longer anticipates interruption. Silence feels complete rather than suspenseful. Suspense belonged to uncertainty. Uncertainty has no ground here. The psalm continues to reveal this condition quietly, without emphasis, without repetition, without urgency. It does not need to persuade you. It does not need to convince you. The place speaks for itself. And as this block continues, there is no sense of arriving at a conclusion. Conclusions imply an ending. This is not an ending. It is a condition that continues beyond the words. Nothing needs to be sealed further. Nothing needs to be reinforced. Nothing needs to be declared. What has been established remains, quietly, firmly, beyond reach. At this stage, the refuge no longer feels distinct from everyday experience. It does not stand apart as something sacred you must return to. It blends into normal life so completely that it becomes invisible, not because it is gone, but because nothing challenges it anymore. Psalm 91 reaches its deepest expression here. When protection becomes the background, life no longer feels divided into safe moments and unsafe moments. There is only continuity. Movement happens, days unfold, conversations occur, responsibilities arise, and none of it disrupts the inner foundation. This is how dwelling becomes permanent. Permanence does not announce itself. It does not create emotion. It does not demand recognition. It simply remains unchanged while everything else moves around it. As this understanding settles, the nervous system stops distinguishing between calm and challenge. Both are received from the same stable position. There is no internal shift when circumstances change. The ground remains the same. This sameness is not numbness, it is reliability. Reliability is what allows long seasons of life to pass without erosion. It is what prevents slow accumulation of pressure. Nothing builds up because nothing presses inward. Pressure cannot accumulate where access does not exist. As time goes on, you may notice that even the desire to protect yourself fades. Self-protection was once necessary because something could reach you. Here, it is unnecessary. Unnecessary things fall away naturally. Psalm 91 does not train you to become more alert, it trains you to become unavailable. Unavailability here is not withdrawal, it is incompatibility. What does not belong cannot remain. As this block unfolds, the idea of being spiritually exposed feels foreign. Exposure implies vulnerability. Vulnerability implies shared space. Shared space no longer exists. You are not sharing your inner space with fear, anxiety, or unseen pressure. They exist elsewhere without influence, without reach. This is why even long stretches of silence feel complete. Silence does not invite threat. It does not feel empty. It feels settled. Settled is the word. Settled means nothing is waiting to happen, nothing is forming in the background, nothing is preparing itself against you. Preparation requires opportunity. Opportunity has been removed. As the words continue, there is no need to listen closely. There is no instruction hidden between the lines. The sound does not carry responsibility. It simply accompanies what already exists. If attention drifts, nothing weakens. If the mind wanders, nothing shifts. If awareness softens, nothing changes. The dwelling does not depend on engagement. This is the final layer of refuge Psalm 91 reveals. Not an experience you maintain, but a place that holds you without asking anything in return. And within this place, life continues quietly. Not smaller, not limited, simply unpressured. Nothing follows you here. Nothing overtakes you. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The ground remains steady beneath everything. At a certain point, the question of where you are no longer arises. You are not checking your position. You are not returning to a place. You are living from it. Psalm 91 reaches this depth without instruction. When a place becomes the source rather than the destination, movement no longer threatens it. You can act, decide, speak, and remain present without shifting internally. Nothing pulls you out of alignment because alignment is no longer something you maintain. It is something you inhabit. This is why identity feels quieter here, not smaller, quieter. Identity no longer needs to defend itself. It no longer needs to explain where it stands. It no longer reacts to what approaches. Reaction belonged to exposure. Exposure is absent. As this understanding settles, even the idea of losing peace becomes irrelevant. Loss implies something can be taken. Nothing can be taken from a place that cannot be entered. Entry is impossible here. Psalm 91 does not promise protection that follows you. It reveals protection that precedes you. Wherever you go, you move from within it. You do not carry it. It carries you. This changes how life is encountered. Moments no longer feel like tests. Challenges no longer feel like threats. They feel like movement within a stable environment. The environment does not adapt to them. They adapt to it. Adaptation happens quietly. As time passes, the sense of self no longer tightens in response to difficulty. There is no contraction beneath the surface, no hidden preparation, no inner bracing. Bracing was a habit formed under pressure. Pressure no longer has access. As this block unfolds, you may notice that even language begins to soften internally. The mind stops narrating experience in terms of defense or survival. Words like hold on, be careful, or watch out lose their relevance. Relevance requires risk. Risk is absent here. This is why Psalm 91 speaks of dwelling rather than striving. Striving assumes something is at stake. Here, nothing is. The place holds regardless of performance. It holds regardless of attention. It holds regardless of outcome. As the words continue, there is no need to remember them later. Nothing depends on recall. The refuge does not operate through memory. It operates through position. Position does not fade. And as this understanding integrates more deeply, even the idea of spiritual effort dissolves. Effort was once a response to instability. Instability no longer exists here. What remains is presence without defense, movement without fear, awareness without vigilance. This is not a heightened state, it is a settled one, settled enough to endure, settled enough to remain, settled enough to carry you through whatever unfolds next. Nothing follows you here, nothing overtakes you, nothing reorganizes itself against you. The place remains, not as something you visit, but as the ground you stand on. There are moments when life becomes loud, decisions stack, responsibilities overlap, expectations arrive from multiple directions. In many places, this would compress the inner world, creating tension, urgency, or a sense of being cornered. Here, it does not. Psalm 91 reveals a condition where external pressure does not translate into internal compression. Things may demand attention, but they do not demand access. They arrive at the edge of awareness and stop there. Stopping is natural here. This does not mean disengagement. It means that engagement no longer costs you stability. You respond without being pulled inward. You act without being pressed. You move without being crowded. Crowding was the real threat. As this understanding settles, the body no longer interprets responsibility as danger. Responsibility becomes movement within safety rather than exposure to risk. There is no tightening beneath the surface, no urgency demanding speed. Speed belonged to escape. Escape is unnecessary here. As the day unfolds, even moments that require firmness do not disturb the inner state. Firmness does not feel aggressive, it feels grounded. Clear boundaries form without effort. Saying no does not cost energy. Saying yes does not create vulnerability. Energy remains intact. Psalm 91 does not teach you to push back against the world. It teaches you to exist in a place where the world cannot push you inward. This distinction changes everything. As this continues, you may notice that even the idea of being overwhelmed loses meaning. Overwhelm requires accumulation. Accumulation requires access. Access has been removed. Nothing piles up here. Tasks may exist, but they do not stack emotionally. Conversations may occur, but they do not linger internally. Moments complete themselves and pass without residue. Residue was the source of fatigue. As the block unfolds, the sense of being able to pause without consequences becomes natural. You do not rush to resolve everything at once. You do not feel chased by unfinished things. Time no longer feels like something that is closing in. Closing in implies proximity. Proximity does not exist here. This is why Psalm 91 supports endurance. Not endurance through effort, but endurance through lack of erosion. When nothing wears you down, you last naturally. As hours pass, the inner rhythm remains unchanged. Whether activity increases or decreases, the core posture does not move. You remain oriented from the same place. Orientation determines experience. And because orientation does not shift, even sudden demands do not destabilize you. There is no internal scramble, no hidden alarm, no rush to protect yourself. Protection is already complete. As this understanding deepens, you may notice that confidence appears without assertion. Not confidence as belief, but confidence as absence of threat. You do not feel strong, you feel unpressured. Unpressured is the truest form of strength. Psalm 91 establishes a space where strength is no longer something you perform. It is something that exists as a byproduct of safety. When nothing can reach you, you do not need to prove resilience. Resilience is implicit. As this block continues, there is no sense of building toward a peak, no expectation of a moment where everything resolves dramatically. Resolution here is quiet and continuous. Quiet enough to last, continuous enough to carry you forward. Nothing follows you into this place. Nothing overtakes you within it. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The dwelling remains, steady beneath movement, intact beneath pressure, and unchanged by what the day demands. There is a moment when anticipation quietly dissolves, not because the future becomes predictable, but because prediction is no longer necessary. Psalm 91 reveals a place where what comes next does not need to be managed in advance. Management belonged to exposure. Exposure no longer exists here. As this understanding settles, the mind stops projecting itself forward defensively. It no longer rehearses outcomes. It no longer prepares responses to imagined scenarios. The future loses its ability to pull attention away from the present. This does not create passivity, it creates presence. Presence here is not focus, it is availability without urgency. You are aware without being pulled. You are ready without being tense. You are open without being vulnerable. Vulnerability required access. Access is absent. As minutes pass, the sense of trust deepens. Not trust in circumstances, not trust in outcomes, but trust in position. You are not trusting that nothing will happen. You are trusting where you are while things happen. This distinction is subtle but decisive. Psalm 91 does not promise that nothing will ever move around you. It promises that nothing will reach you. Movement may exist, pressure may appear externally, but reach has been removed. As this realization integrates, the body no longer responds to uncertainty with contraction. There is no tightening in the chest, no shallow readiness in the breath. The system understands without thought that nothing is approaching closely enough to matter. This understanding feels calm, not reassuring. Reassurance responds to fear. Fear has no access here. As this block unfolds, even moments of waiting lose their charge. Waiting no longer feels tense or anticipatory, it feels neutral. Time passes without expectation. Expectation implied risk. Risk no longer organizes perception. This neutrality allows patience without effort. You are no longer enduring the present to reach something safer later. The present is already safe. There is no safer place ahead. Here is enough. As the words continue, there is no invitation to visualize, to imagine, or to declare anything. Imagination would imply absence. Declaration would imply uncertainty. Neither is required. What is established does not need reinforcement. Psalm 91 operates beneath cognition. It does not persuade the mind. It repositions the entire system. When repositioning occurs, belief becomes irrelevant. Relevance belongs to doubt. Doubt has no footing here. As this continues, you may notice that your inner dialogue becomes simpler. Thoughts arise, but they do not branch into scenarios. They complete themselves and dissolve. Completion prevents accumulation. Accumulation was the source of pressure. As this block holds, the idea of being caught off guard becomes meaningless. Surprise may occur, but it does not shock the system. Shock requires vulnerability. Vulnerability has been removed. Nothing startles you from behind. Nothing rushes you from ahead. Nothing surrounds you unexpectedly. The dwelling is not reactive, it is absolute. And as this absolute nature settles more deeply, there is no sense of guarding it. Guarding would imply it could be lost. Loss is not part of this environment. The place remains, quietly, steadily, and without condition. At this depth, even the idea of staying settled begins to fade. You are no longer maintaining anything. Maintenance implies effort. Effort implies the possibility of loss. Loss is no longer relevant here. Psalm 91 reveals a rest that exists before intention. You do not remain here by choice. You remain because there is nowhere else to be. As this understanding settles, the system releases its final layer of control. Control once served as a safeguard. Safeguards are unnecessary when access has been removed entirely. This is where rest becomes complete. Complete rest does not feel heavy. It does not feel sleepy. It feels neutral, open, and unguarded. As minutes pass, even subtle impulses to adjust, to correct, or to optimize disappear. Nothing needs refinement. Nothing needs improvement. What exists is already sufficient. Sufficiency is the end of striving. Psalm 91 does not invite you to deepen endlessly. It invites you to stop descending because you have reached ground. Ground does not ask you to go further. It holds. As this block unfolds, awareness becomes simple. You are aware without scanning, present without effort. Nothing is being monitored. Nothing is being evaluated. Evaluation belonged to risk. Risk has no access here. The mind no longer seeks confirmation that the refuge remains active. Confirmation would imply doubt. Doubt has no foothold in a place that does not change. Change cannot enter here. This is why even silence feels full, not full of sensation, but full of stability. Silence does not invite intrusion. It does not suggest absence. It simply exists as part of the same environment. As the sound continues or softens or pauses briefly, nothing shifts. The dwelling does not depend on continuity of words. It existed before the words arrived. It remains after they pass. The words do not carry the state carries the words. As this understanding deepens, the sense of being held becomes impersonal, not comforted, not reassured, simply placed somewhere that does not require explanation. Explanation belongs to uncertainty. Uncertainty is not present here. As moments move forward, there is no internal urge to mark progress, no sense of moving closer to something, no expectation of arrival. Arrival has already occurred. This is why Psalm 91 does not resolve into a conclusion. Conclusions imply transition. There is no transition here, only continuation without effort. The dwelling does not end, it does not pause, it does not wait, it remains. And as this block continues, the idea of needing to protect peace disappears entirely. Peace here is not fragile, it does not break, it does not thin, it is structural. Nothing follows you here, nothing overtakes you, nothing reorganizes itself against you. The place holds quietly, permanently, and beyond reach. At this depth, time no longer feels like a sequence of moments you move through. It feels like a quiet field in which moments appear and dissolve without urgency. There is no sense of waiting for something to happen next. Psalm 91 settles you into this relationship with time. When time loses urgency, pressure loses leverage. Pressure depends on deadlines, on anticipation, on the sense that something is approaching. Here, nothing approaches. Everything simply exists and then passes. Passing does not threaten what remains. As this understanding settles, the body stops marking time internally. There is no subtle clock counting down, no readiness building beneath stillness. The system no longer prepares for the next moment as if it might require defense. Defense has no role here. This is why rest deepens without collapse. You are not falling into rest, you are resting while fully present. Presence does not interrupt rest, it coexists with it naturally. Psalm 91 does not create a special moment, it reveals a permanent condition, a condition where nothing depends on pace, timing, or sequence. As this block unfolds, you may notice that the idea of staying alert fades completely. Alertness was a response to risk. Risk has no access here. Without risk, alertness relaxes on its own. Relaxation does not need permission. The mind no longer jumps ahead or lingers behind. It stays where it is without effort. Thoughts appear and dissolve without narrative. There is no internal commentary directing attention. Commentary belongs to evaluation. Evaluation is unnecessary here. As this continues, even the sense of continuity becomes less noticeable. You are not aware of maintaining anything. The dwelling holds itself independently of awareness. This independence is what makes it reliable. Psalm 91 does not ask you to remain present in order to stay protected. Protection remains whether presence is sharp or soft, focused or drifting. This is why silence does not feel empty, it feels complete. Nothing is missing from it, nothing is expected to arrive. Expectation had no place here to begin with. As minutes pass, there is no signal that something must conclude, no subtle winding down, no emotional closing. The experience does not aim toward an endpoint. Endpoints imply departure. There is no departure from this place. As the sound continues or gradually fades, nothing essential shifts. The state does not thin, it does not loosen, it does not require reinforcement. It simply remains. Remaining here does not require memory. You do not need to remember how you arrived. Arrival is no longer relevant. The place is where you are. And as this block holds, there is nothing else to resolve, nothing else to secure, nothing else to prepare for. The dwelling stands complete. Quiet, unpressured, beyond reach. At this stage, even the language of protection begins to feel unnecessary. Protection implies danger. Here, danger no longer forms clearly enough to be named. The mind no longer categorizes experience in terms of safe or unsafe. Psalm 91 carries you beyond that distinction. When nothing approaches closely enough to threaten, protection fades into the background. It does not disappear. It becomes irrelevant. What is irrelevant no longer occupies thought. This is why the inner world feels spacious without effort. There is no internal narration explaining why things feel calm. Calm no longer needs justification. It exists because nothing is pressing against it. As this understanding settles, the system releases its final habit of self-checking. There is no moment of asking, "Am I still okay?" That question belonged to a time when things could change suddenly. Sudden change has no access here. The body no longer registers subtle alarms. There is no flicker of readiness beneath stillness. Muscles remain soft without collapsing. Breathing remains steady without being guided. Guidance is unnecessary. Psalm 91 does not guide you through steps. It positions you where steps are no longer needed. Once positioned, movement becomes simple. You move when movement is required. You rest when rest arrives. Neither disrupts the other. As this block unfolds, the sense of inner quiet becomes almost unnoticeable, not because it fades, but because it no longer contrasts with anything. Silence does not feel special. Noise does not feel invasive. Everything occurs within the same stable field. This sameness is not dullness, it is neutrality without threat. Neutrality allows experience to pass through without imprint. Nothing sticks, nothing lingers, nothing demands processing. Processing was a survival function. Survival mode is inactive here. As minutes pass, even the concept of vigilance feels foreign. Vigilance assumed that something might cross the boundary. The boundary does not invite crossing. It is not defended because it is not contested. Contest requires access. Access has been removed. This is why Psalm 91 does not ask you to hold on to peace. Peace is not something you could lose. It is the default environment. Loss does not apply here. As the sound continues, the mind does not try to remember key ideas. Memory is unnecessary. Nothing depends on recall. The refuge is not built from understanding. It is recognized through position. Position does not fade. And as this recognition deepens, the sense of being untouched becomes quiet certainty, not something you think about, something you live from. Nothing follows you here, nothing overtakes you, nothing reorganizes itself against you. The place remains steady, silent, and complete. At this depth, there is no longer a sense of entering anything. Entry implies movement from one state to another. That movement has already happened, quietly and without announcement. Psalm 91 does not describe a journey, it describes arrival. Arrival here is not marked by emotion. There is no surge, no release, no signal that something has changed. What has changed is position, and position does not announce itself. When position shifts, everything else reorganizes naturally. This is why nothing feels dramatic now. Drama requires contrast. Contrast requires tension. Tension no longer exists here. The system has settled into a place where nothing presses strongly enough to create contrast. As this understanding settles, the idea of being inside the refuge dissolves. Inside implies an outside that matters. Here, outside has lost relevance. It may exist, but it no longer organizes your experience. Experience now arises from a different ground. This ground does not react to movement. It does not tighten when things become complex. It does not brace when the unexpected appears. It remains unchanged because it is not positioned where change applies. Change requires access. Access does not exist here. As minutes pass, the mind stops interpreting sensations as signals. Sensations arise and pass without instruction. They do not demand meaning. They do not call for action. They do not organize thought. Meaning-making was once protective. Protection is no longer reactive. Psalm 91 reveals that when you dwell, the need to interpret life defensively dissolves. Interpretation gives way to presence. Presence here is not alertness. It is neutrality without threat. Neutrality allows everything to pass through without imprint. As this block unfolds, the nervous system settles into a rhythm that feels unfamiliar at first, not because it is unsafe, but because it is unpressured. There is no subtle readiness beneath the surface, no waiting, no monitoring. Monitoring belonged to environments where something could arrive unexpectedly. Nothing arrives here. This is why even silence feels different now. Silence does not feel like a pause between events. It feels complete in itself. It does not suggest anticipation. It does not invite intrusion. As the sound continues or softens or blends into quiet, nothing essential shifts. The refuge does not depend on continuity of words. It existed before the words began. It remains when they fade. The words are not holding you here. The place is holding you. As time stretches, the sense of duration becomes less relevant. You are no longer counting minutes. You are no longer aware of how long you have been here. Time does not mark progress because nothing is progressing towards something else. There is nowhere else to go. Psalm 91 does not promise improvement. Improvement implies deficiency. Deficiency has no meaning here. What exists is already complete. Completeness does not feel exciting, it feels stable. Stability allows long presence without fatigue. It allows awareness to soften without collapse. It allows rest without disengagement. This is why the body begins to trust the state without instruction. Trust here is not belief, it is absence of resistance. Resistance dissolves when nothing is being pushed against. As this understanding deepens, even the idea of vulnerability feels abstract. Vulnerability implies that something could reach you at a sensitive point. There is no such point here. The environment itself is incompatible with intrusion. This incompatibility does not need to be maintained. It does not require vigilance. It does not weaken over time. It remains as long as you remain, and remaining no longer feels like an action. Remaining is the default. As this block continues, the experience does not move toward resolution. Resolution implies closure. There is nothing to close. What has been established remains open, continuous, and unaffected by the passing of moments. Nothing follows you here. Nothing overtakes you. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The place holds, not as something you return to, but as the ground you stand on. As this ground becomes fully familiar, even the sense of being held fades into neutrality. You are no longer aware of support because nothing is threatening enough to require it. Support has become implicit. Psalm 91 operates most powerfully here. When support is implicit, the system no longer references it. It no longer checks whether it is present. It no longer asks whether it will remain. Those questions belong to a time when loss was possible. Loss is not possible here. As this realization settles, the mind releases its last habit of framing experience around safety. Safety is no longer a category, there is simply experience occurring within an environment that does not permit intrusion. This is why everything feels quieter without becoming dull. Quiet here is not absence of life, it is absence of pressure. Life continues without being amplified by threat. As moments pass, even internal fluctuations lose their charge. Mood may change, energy may rise or fall. None of it penetrates the core. The core remains unchanged regardless of variation. Variation occurs on the surface. Stability exists beneath it. Psalm 91 reveals that when you dwell, the surface is no longer mistaken for the center. You are not pulled outward by what appears. You are not drawn inward by what passes. Everything remains in proportion. Proportion restores balance. As this block unfolds, the body stops interpreting minor sensations as warnings. A change in breath, a shift in posture, a fleeting sensation. None of it escalates. There is no reflex to respond. Response was once automatic. Automatic response belonged to exposure. This is why the nervous system now feels slower without being sluggish. Slowness here is accuracy. Nothing rushes because nothing threatens. Threat no longer sets tempo. As time stretches, the sense of continuity deepens. You are no longer aware of sustaining anything. The dwelling sustains itself. Awareness moves freely without consequence. This freedom allows attention to soften completely. You may listen closely or drift lightly. You may remain present or allow the words to blend into the background. Nothing is lost either way. Loss does not apply here. Psalm 91 does not depend on engagement. It does not weaken when attention fades. It does not require reinforcement through repetition. It remains active beneath everything else. This is why the experience supports long presence. Hours can pass without strain. Listening can continue without effort. Rest can deepen without collapse. As this understanding settles further, the mind stops narrating experience entirely. There is no internal commentary labeling what is happening. Labels are unnecessary when nothing needs interpretation. Interpretation was a survival tool. Survival mode is inactive here. As this block continues, the sense of inner openness expands without vulnerability. Openness here is not exposure, it is spaciousness without access. Access has been removed. This is why even subtle anxieties lose coherence. They may attempt to form, but they cannot organize themselves. Organization requires ground. Ground does not exist for them here. They dissolve quietly. As minutes pass, the idea of staying safe feels distant. Safety is not something you are doing, it is something that is already decided by position. Position does not change. And as this understanding deepens, the experience becomes increasingly simple. Not simplistic, simple, free from layers of reaction, explanation, or defense. Simplicity allows endurance. Endurance here does not mean persistence through difficulty, it means continuity without erosion. Nothing wears you down, nothing accumulates. As this block holds, there is no sense of nearing a conclusion, no feeling that something must end or resolve. The experience does not move toward closure. Closure implies departure. There is no departure from this place. The dwelling remains steady beneath awareness, intact beneath silence, and unaffected by time. Nothing follows you here, nothing overtakes you, nothing reorganizes itself against you. The ground holds. At this point, remaining no longer feels like an action. You are not choosing to stay. Staying has become automatic because nothing invites departure. There is no pull outward, no tension suggesting movement is required. Psalm 91 settles you into this automatic stability. Automatic here does not mean unconscious, it means unchallenged. What is unchallenged does not require reinforcement, it does not require decision, it simply continues. As this understanding settles, the system releases the last impulse to adjust itself. Adjustment was once necessary to respond to pressure. Pressure no longer applies. There is nothing to adjust to. This creates a sense of ease that does not fluctuate. Ease here is not comfort. It is absence of friction. Everything moves without resistance because nothing pushes against it. As minutes pass, the body responds by staying neutral, not collapsed, not braced, simply aligned. Alignment here does not feel like effort. It feels like gravity, natural, constant, unquestioned. Psalm 91 does not ask you to hold alignment. It places you where alignment holds you. As this block unfolds, the mind stops organizing experience around control. Control was a response to unpredictability. Unpredictability no longer carries threat. Events may surprise, but they do not destabilize. Destabilization required access. Access has been removed. This is why even intense moments feel contained. They arise, peak, and dissolve without spreading. They do not spill into the rest of the system. Containment here is not enforced, it is structural. Structure remains even when attention moves elsewhere. As time stretches, the idea of keeping this state becomes irrelevant. Keeping implies effort. Effort implies possible loss. Loss is not part of this environment. The place does not erode. As the sound continues, awareness may drift, thoughts may appear and pass. The experience remains unchanged. Nothing weakens, nothing strengthens, nothing needs correction. Correction belongs to imperfection. Imperfection has no relevance here. Psalm 91 reveals that once you dwell, the need for spiritual management dissolves. You are no longer managing peace, safety, or stability. They exist as conditions, not tasks. Tasks imply urgency. Urgency does not exist here. As this understanding deepens, even the idea of going deeper loses meaning. Deeper implies layers. Layers imply complexity. Complexity has been replaced by simplicity. Simplicity does not invite analysis. It invites rest. As minutes pass, rest no longer feels like an activity. It feels like the natural state from which everything else occurs. Activity happens within rest, not instead of it. This is the paradox Psalm 91 reveals. Movement without disturbance, action without exposure, presence without defense. Nothing follows you here. Nothing overtakes you. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The dwelling remains automatic, effortless, and complete. At this depth, the system no longer recognizes the category of threat at all. Not because threats have been analyzed or neutralized, but because the environment no longer supports their formation. They do not gather shape, they do not assemble intention, they dissolve before becoming distinct. Psalm 91 brings you into this condition without explanation. Explanation would imply uncertainty. Uncertainty no longer applies. As this understanding settles, the inner world becomes remarkably quiet without effort. Quiet here is not imposed. It is the natural result of nothing pressing against awareness. Thoughts still appear, but they no longer cluster. They arise individually and pass without linking into narratives. Narratives require tension. Tension has no footing here. As minutes pass, the sense of inner spaciousness becomes ordinary. It no longer feels expansive or special. It feels normal. Normal does not mean weak, it means established. Establishment is what endures. Psalm 91 does not describe protection as an active shield. It describes an environment where intrusion cannot organize itself. Organization requires time, access, and proximity. None of these are available here. This is why nothing escalates. As this block unfolds, the nervous system remains in a state of readiness without alertness. Readiness here does not feel like preparation. It feels like availability. You are present without being braced. You are open without being exposed. Exposure was the missing variable. It has been removed. As time stretches, the sense of continuity deepens further. There is no beginning or ending to the experience. It does not feel like a session. It feels like a place you have always been. Always does not imply memory. It implies inevitability. This inevitability does not feel heavy. It feels reassuring without reassurance. Nothing needs to convince you that this state will hold. Conviction is unnecessary when nothing challenges the condition. Challenges require contact. Contact cannot occur here. As this understanding integrates, the body no longer interprets fatigue as vulnerability. Fatigue may appear, but it does not open doors. It does not thin boundaries. It does not invite intrusion. Boundaries do not thin here. This is why rest feels complete, even when tiredness exists. Tiredness is experienced without concern. It does not signal danger. It does not require correction. Correction belonged to environments where mistakes could be exploited. Exploitation has no access here. As the sound continues, awareness does not try to capture or retain the experience. Retention would imply loss is possible. Loss is not possible here. The dwelling does not depend on memory. It does not depend on understanding. It does not depend on continuation. It simply remains. As minutes pass, even the idea of being guided dissolves. Guidance implies direction. Direction implies movement towards something else. There is nothing else to move toward. You are already positioned. Psalm 91 settles you into this realization quietly, without instruction, without emphasis. The realization does not announce itself. It integrates slowly until it feels obvious. Obviousness is the final stage. When something becomes obvious, it no longer occupies thought. It simply exists as the way things are. As this block continues, nothing is expected to change. There is no anticipation of a next phase, no sense of progression. The experience does not climb or descend, it holds. And within this holding, the absence of disturbance becomes complete. Not dramatic, not intense, simply complete. Nothing follows you here. Nothing overtakes you. Nothing reorganizes itself against you. The place remains steady, unchallenged, and permanent. As this space continues, there is a subtle shift that does not disturb what has been established. Nothing is undone, nothing is weakened. The stillness remains exactly as it is. What changes is not the state, but your relationship to it. Up until now, the dwelling has simply been present, unquestioned, unnamed. It has not asked to be remembered or returned to. It has existed quietly without reference. Now, without urgency, it becomes something you can recognize. Recognition does not pull you out of the space. It does not create distance. It simply allows awareness to acknowledge what has already been familiar. Familiarity here does not feel emotional. It feels natural, like noticing a place you have been standing in for a long time. Psalm 91 does not ask you to leave this place in order to live. It reveals that this place is where life continues from. What changes is not the refuge, but how you understand your movement within it. Movement no longer feels like departure. You may begin to notice that even as attention becomes lighter, even as awareness drifts, the environment does not change. The state remains present, whether you are actively listening or simply resting inside the sound. This is important because it means the refuge does not depend on this moment alone. It is not bound to a single listening. It is not limited to one passage of time. It exists as something you return to naturally, not because you need it, but because it is familiar. Familiarity removes effort. You are not being introduced to something new. You are recognizing something that has already become part of your inner landscape. This recognition does not demand action. It does not ask for commitment. It simply allows continuity. Continuity here does not mean repetition. It means availability. The place you are in now does not close when the sound ends. It does not fade when the words soften. It does not disappear when attention moves elsewhere. It remains accessible in the same quiet way it has been present throughout this time. This is why nothing needs to be concluded yet. There is no instruction to leave, no signal that something is ending, no moment that asks you to come back later. Instead, there is a gentle understanding that this space exists beyond this single moment, that it can be returned to without effort, without preparation, without needing to recreate anything. You do not recreate this place. You recognize it again. As this realization settles, the stillness remains unchanged. The protection remains implicit. The authority remains silent. Nothing becomes more intense. Nothing diminishes. What changes is simply orientation. Orientation toward continuity rather than conclusion. You may listen again another time. You may return to another psalm. You may allow this space to accompany rest, silence, or reflection. All of that happens without breaking what has been established here. The refuge does not belong to this moment alone. It belongs to a way of remaining, a way of dwelling that does not require effort or explanation. And as this understanding settles fully, the space remains exactly as it has been. Quiet, unpressured, available. If this place has become familiar to you, not as a moment but as a state you can return to, you are welcome to remain connected to this channel. Not out of obligation, not out of urgency, simply as a way to recognize this space again whenever you need stillness, refuge, or quiet protection. Nothing else is required. Nothing shifts after this recognition. The stillness remains exactly as it is. The refuge does not react to awareness. It does not change when acknowledged. As the sound continues, there is no sense of departure approaching. The experience does not move toward an ending. It softens into continuity, the kind that does not announce itself. You do not leave this place when the words slow. You do not exit it when silence appears. It remains present beneath whatever comes next. The protection described in Psalm 91 does not belong to this listening alone. It belongs to a way of remaining, a condition that stays active beyond sound, beyond attention, beyond time. As the final moments unfold, nothing needs to be held in place. Nothing needs to be remembered. Nothing needs to be repeated. The place holds itself. You may rest here. You may let awareness drift. You may allow silence to take over gently. Nothing is lost. What has been established does not weaken when the audio ends. It remains available, the same way it has been present throughout this time. Quiet, unpressured, and unchanged. There is no final instruction, no closing declaration, no transition you need to prepare for. The refuge does not end, and whatever comes next will meet you from here, steady, protected, and beyond reach.